A 120-volt, 15-amp receptacle installed above a kitchen range in an existing dwelling was a violation of the National Electrical Code, both 40 years ago under the 1981 NEC and still a violation under the 2002 NEC. Under the 1981 National Electrical Code, specifically Article 210.52c, a separate 20-amp circuit was required for all kitchen counter receptacle outlets. This means that any receptacle intended to serve countertop surfaces in the kitchen needed to be supplied by a dedicated 20-amp circuit. The 1981 NEC aimed to ensure that countertop appliances, which often draw significant power, could be used safely without overloading the circuit. The 2002 National Electrical Code also maintained this requirement. Article 210.52c in the 2002 NEC retained the provision for a separate 20-amp circuit dedicated to kitchen counter receptacle outlets. This continuity in the code reflects the ongoing concern for electrical safety in kitchens, recognizing the high demand for power from various appliances used in this area. The rationale behind this code requirement centers on electrical safety and preventing overloads. Kitchen ranges typically draw a substantial amount of current. If a 15-amp receptacle is installed above the range and used for other appliances, the combined load could easily exceed the circuit's capacity. This could lead to several potential problems. Firstly, the circuit breaker could trip frequently, causing inconvenience and potentially damaging sensitive electronic equipment. Secondly, and more seriously, an overloaded circuit can cause the wiring to overheat. Overheated wires can melt the insulation, creating a risk of electrical shorts, arcing, and ultimately, fire. By requiring a separate 20-amp circuit for kitchen counter receptacles, the NEC aims to minimize the risk of such overloads and ensure a safer electrical environment in the kitchen. Additionally, the 2002 National Electrical Code introduced another layer of protection for kitchen receptacles. Countertop outlets located within 24 inches of a sink must be ground fault circuit interrupter (GFCI) protected. GFCI protection is designed to detect even small imbalances in the current flowing through the circuit, which could indicate a leakage of current to ground. This leakage can be dangerous, as it poses a risk of electric shock. When a GFCI detects such an imbalance, it quickly trips the circuit, interrupting the flow of electricity and preventing a potentially lethal shock. A shared circuit with a range would not allow for GFCI protection for the countertop receptacle. Ranges themselves do not require GFCI protection, and incorporating a GFCI device on a circuit that also feeds a range could lead to nuisance tripping due to the normal operational characteristics of the range. Therefore, the requirement for a separate 20-amp circuit for kitchen counter receptacles, especially those near sinks, is essential for ensuring both overload protection and ground fault protection. The original installation of a 120-volt, 15-amp receptacle above the kitchen range was a code violation because it did not comply with the requirement for a separate 20-amp circuit dedicated to kitchen countertop receptacles. This violation existed both under the 1981 and 2002 editions of the National Electrical Code, highlighting the continued importance of this safety measure. The code's intent is to prevent overloads, reduce the risk of fire, and ensure that GFCI protection can be implemented when necessary, all contributing to a safer kitchen environment. When evaluating electrical installations, it is essential to refer to the specific edition of the NEC that was in effect at the time of installation. However, in this case, the requirement for a separate 20-amp circuit for kitchen counter receptacles has been a consistent feature of the NEC for many years, making the original installation a clear violation. The NEC is updated regularly to incorporate new technologies, address emerging safety concerns, and refine existing requirements. It is the responsibility of electrical contractors, inspectors, and homeowners to stay informed about the latest code requirements and ensure that electrical installations comply with the applicable standards. In summary, the presence of a 120-volt, 15-amp receptacle above a kitchen range in an existing dwelling constituted a violation of the National Electrical Code both 40 years ago and at the time of the 2002 NEC. This violation stems from the code's mandate for a separate 20-amp circuit for kitchen countertop receptacles intended to prevent overloads, mitigate fire hazards, and facilitate the implementation of ground fault circuit interrupter (GFCI) protection where required. To elaborate further on the importance of a dedicated 20-amp circuit for kitchen countertop receptacles, it is helpful to consider the typical electrical demands of appliances commonly used in kitchens. Countertop appliances such as toasters, blenders, coffee makers, and microwave ovens can each draw a significant amount of current. If several of these appliances are operated simultaneously on a single 15-amp circuit, the circuit is likely to become overloaded. An overloaded circuit can manifest in several ways. The most obvious is the tripping of the circuit breaker, which interrupts the flow of electricity to prevent damage to the wiring. However, repeated tripping of the circuit breaker can be inconvenient and may lead some individuals to replace the breaker with one of a higher amperage rating, which is a dangerous practice. A higher amperage breaker will allow more current to flow through the circuit than it is designed to handle, increasing the risk of overheating and fire. Even if the circuit breaker does not trip, an overloaded circuit can still cause the wiring to overheat. Over time, this overheating can degrade the insulation around the wires, making them more susceptible to shorts and arcing. Electrical arcing is a particularly dangerous phenomenon, as it can generate intense heat and sparks that can ignite nearby combustible materials. By providing a dedicated 20-amp circuit for kitchen countertop receptacles, the National Electrical Code aims to reduce the likelihood of such overloads and their associated hazards. A 20-amp circuit has a higher capacity than a 15-amp circuit, allowing it to handle a greater combined load from multiple appliances. This reduces the risk of tripping the circuit breaker and minimizes the potential for overheating. In addition to preventing overloads, the requirement for a dedicated 20-amp circuit also facilitates the implementation of GFCI protection for receptacles located near sinks. As mentioned earlier, the 2002 NEC requires that countertop outlets within 24 inches of a sink be GFCI protected. GFCI protection is designed to detect even small imbalances in the current flowing through the circuit, which could indicate a leakage of current to ground. This leakage can be dangerous, as it poses a risk of electric shock. When a GFCI detects such an imbalance, it quickly trips the circuit, interrupting the flow of electricity and preventing a potentially lethal shock. GFCI protection is particularly important in kitchens because of the presence of water. Water is a good conductor of electricity, and even small amounts of water can significantly increase the risk of electric shock. By requiring GFCI protection for receptacles near sinks, the NEC aims to minimize this risk and ensure a safer electrical environment. A shared circuit with a range would not allow for GFCI protection for the countertop receptacle. Ranges themselves do not require GFCI protection, and incorporating a GFCI device on a circuit that also feeds a range could lead to nuisance tripping due to the normal operational characteristics of the range. Therefore, the requirement for a separate 20-amp circuit for kitchen counter receptacles, especially those near sinks, is essential for ensuring both overload protection and ground fault protection. The National Electrical Code is a comprehensive set of standards that governs the safe installation and maintenance of electrical systems. The code is developed and updated regularly by the National Fire Protection Association, NFPA, a non-profit organization dedicated to reducing the risk of fire and other hazards. The NEC is widely adopted by state and local jurisdictions throughout the United States, and compliance with the code is often required by law. The NEC is not a static document. It is revised and updated every 3 years to reflect changes in technology, address emerging safety concerns, and incorporate lessons learned from past incidents. Electrical contractors, inspectors, and other professionals involved in the electrical industry must stay informed about the latest code requirements to ensure that their work complies with the applicable standards. The NEC covers a wide range of topics related to electrical safety, including wiring methods, overcurrent protection, grounding, and equipment installation. The code also includes specific requirements for different types of occupancies, such as residential, commercial, and industrial buildings. The NEC is a complex and detailed document, and it can be challenging to interpret and apply its provisions correctly. Therefore, it is important for individuals working with electrical systems to have a thorough understanding of the code and to consult with qualified professionals when necessary. In addition to the NEC, there may be other applicable codes and standards that govern electrical installations in a particular jurisdiction. These may include state and local building codes, as well as industry standards developed by organizations such as the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, IEE, and the American National Standards Institute, ANSI. It is important to be aware of all applicable codes and standards and to ensure that electrical installations comply with all requirements. The safe installation and maintenance of electrical systems is essential for protecting people and property from the hazards of electricity. Compliance with the National Electrical Code and other applicable standards is a critical step in achieving this goal. By following the code, electrical contractors, inspectors, and homeowners can help to ensure that electrical systems are installed and maintained in a safe and reliable manner. In conclusion, the presence of a 120-volt, 15-amp receptacle above a kitchen range in an existing dwelling constituted a violation of the National Electrical Code both 40 years ago and at the time of the 2002 NEC. This violation stems from the code's mandate for a separate 20-amp circuit for kitchen countertop receptacles intended to prevent overloads, mitigate fire hazards, and facilitate the implementation of ground fault circuit interrupter (GFCI) protection where required. Understanding and adhering to the National Electrical Code is crucial for ensuring the safety and reliability of electrical systems in all types of buildings. Remember to always consult the most recent edition of the NEC and to seek guidance from qualified electrical professionals when working with electrical systems.